Hello and welcome to the 2019 FIA Certified Gran Turismo Championships. It's the top 16 superstars and the Manufacturers Series for the North American region race coming up for you very, very shortly indeed. My name is Tom Brooks. Alongside me for this one is Chaz Draycott. We're here to guide you through the action out on track here today. And Chaz, we're looking forward to some very exciting action out there on track today.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic to watch. The Manufacturers Series always throws up a great race for us. So many different types of car, so many different drivers of all varying talents as well. They're going to give it everything because there's so many variables in this championship they've got to think about. Let's get straight into it, shall we? Take a closer look at the regional standings for the North Americas region then as we look at it after 19 rounds. So Turismo Def Sun there for Lexus is at the top of the pile. He's 14,571 points. Then it's Carl Lam for Alfa Romeo in second. FT Ant for Mercedes-Benz in third. Ford for TRC Stagger in fourth position. Then comes Porsche in fifth. Originals 14 for BMW down there in sixth place. Then Gumball, Turismo Windfire as well, as you can see. And now, of course, for the Manufacturer Series, it's not necessarily that important where you finish in the standings, just, of course, that you are the lead driver for a different manufacturer. So, say, for example, with TRC Stagger there for Ford in fourth place, if you look to GTP Pelican, who is in 15th position, he, of course, is quite a significant way ahead. Now, if Ford qualify for the next World Tour event, and, of course, with over the 5 regions that North America are in the top 3, then you would see TRC Stagger taking the wheel for Ford in that set of circumstances. So that's how it all works, and it's a little bit confusing, but hopefully we're able to get that to you in as easy a way as possible. Anyway, let's take a closer look at the global standings then, shall we, after the regional standings. So you can see that Lexus are at the top of the order there, 940 points compared to Mercedes-Benz on 898. Very close behind, though, is Toyota and BMW on 883 and 878 points, respectively. You can see further down the order, Porsche, Jaguar, Aston Martin. There is Ford in 8th position, so it could be going the way of TRC Gumball there, as we were, TRC Stagger, rather, I should say, in as we were saying in the standings. Then Alfa Romeo, Hyundai, Audi and Chevrolet round out the top 12 manufacturers as we have it. Let's take a closer look at the circuit the drivers are going to be competing on then, shall we? For this Manufacturer Series race of the North Americas region, it is the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya in Spain. Based just outside of Barcelona, about an hour away from it in Montmeló, 4.6 kilometres long. Opened back in 1991, as well, was modified in 2007 to include that chicane of turns 14 and 15, as you can see. Some overtaking opportunities for start-finish straight out of turn 16 down towards turn 1 and out of turn 9 into turn 10. Yeah, there's going to be some really good opportunities for slipstreaming here down towards that first corner. The 29-metre elevation change is actually a lot steeper than it sounds, to be honest. There's a long dip down towards turn 1, so the cars gain more and more speed the further down the straight they go. The drivers have got to consider that when they're hard onto the brakes. And, of course, more slipstreaming out of turn 9 onto turn 10. They want to make sure they get a good run, plenty of momentum mid-corner out of turn 9. And, of course, with a penalty line there as well, it's going to be very pivotal in case anyone picks one up. Yeah, if drivers do get a penalty for one reason or another, for example, exceeding track limits or some unsportsmanlike conduct with other competitors out on track, that is where they will serve their penalty. And it's a very crucial part of the lap as well, as you're carrying a lot of speed, and often the field is very bunched up in these shorter races. A closer look at the circuit details then, you can see that we're competing at the Circuit of Barcelona, Catalunya. Racing hard and medium tyres available for these drivers. 9 laps for them to complete around this track. We've had a 10-minute qualifying session already, which has decided the grid. 5 times fuel consumption, 11 times tyre wear here there, Chaz. Strategy-wise, with those 2 compounds of tyres available, I'm not sure what we're going to have to read into this. What do you reckon? Do you think anybody's going to go for the hard tyres and opt to do that through the entirety of the race? Or do we think they're just going to go straight to the mediums and do a medium strategy, or try and stretch those mediums to the end of the race? I think what we may see is some people try and stretch the mediums to the end. We've seen it in a couple of other regions as well. For some people it's worked, for others it's not. But at the end of the day, these racing drivers, they want to be on full pace, as much pace as they can get all the time. I think we're going to see guys go throughout the whole race on the medium tyre. When they make the pit stop, that's going to be the interesting thing. Some of them have been making it early in other regions to try and get out of the traffic, get a bit of clean air, set some fast laps. Other guys have been trying to stretch them out to like lap 7 and then just use the fresh rubber over the last 2 laps to make up any ground they may have lost or where they've been held up. So there's a lot of different ways of going at it, and that's what I love about these sorts of races, you know. They're only short 9-lap races, but at the same time, they've got to throw some strategy in there as well, and there's less time to think about it, which is great.
And take into account, of course, the drivers are going to have to, if they do make a pit stop, they'll lose about 6 seconds in terms of the overall pit stop time and the tyre change. But of course, they'll have to put a bit of fuel on board so that they can go flat out until the very end of that race. So the average pit stop time is about 10 or 11 seconds there and thereabouts for these drivers. Anyway, with all that taken into consideration, let's head over to the grid, shall we, and get the start of this Manufacturer Series race for the North Americas region underway. Over to the grid then, Turismo Defsun starts on pole position for Lexus. Alongside him on the front row is the BMW of Originals 14. Keep an eye out for him. There's FT Ant, of course, otherwise known as Anthony Felix in the Mercedes in 3rd position. The Mazda of AMS Marzan in 4th position as well. Really good qualifying there then from him. What do we reckon down towards that first corner? It's very tight in towards turn 1 and 2, and we've got 16 drivers all trying to get the same piece of tarmac.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see whether anyone makes any moves, and we've seen that in the other regions the Lexus has been good in a straight line, so is the Mercedes, so just going to have to see how Originals 14 gets on here. He's just got to make sure that he uses that slipstream, as I'm sure they'll all go single file, as we're going to see now. Out
of the final corner we go then, ready to get this Manufacturer Series race for the top 16 superstars. The North Americas region is underway. Turismo Defsun leads the field over the timing line. Original 14 slots into the slipstream, as does Turismo Leicester. Of course, they're all trying to get as maximum amount of speed possible, and you can see them all weaving over to the different sides of the circuit. Gumball CTG there in the red Aston Martin on the outside. Keep an eye out though for Originals 14, who's gotten ahead of Turismo's Defsun down in towards the first corner, and also FT Ant shuffled in the middle of the pack there as well, as we look at AMS Marzan, who's on the outside of turn 2 and got the inside line there for turn 3. Is he going to be able to make anything stick in the Mazda up the inside of him then? He is indeed. He's now into second place, but he's on side by side with Originals 14 as they come down in towards turn number 4. Keep an eye out for Gumball CTG and also TTG Thunder in the Aston Martin and Corvette respectively down into this corner, but Turismo Defsun does hold on to this lead now in first place, but Originals 14 is still going side by side with the Mazda. Those two down into turn 5. Originals on the inside, the Mercedes, I should say, the Mazda on the outside there, the Mercedes on the inside here then of FT Ant, who now gets ahead of AMS Marzan out of turn 5 and up in towards turn 6 and 7.
What a frantic first few couple of corners. The first half of a lap was just amazing. Side by side stuff from AMS Marzan, really getting his elbows out. FT Ant benefits from it in the end, and Originals 14 holds on to his second place. TTG Thunder trying to get through as well. Gumball CGT, they're all just like queuing up behind them. Carl Lamb gets past Gumball CGT there in the background. Gumball CGT is actually dropping down 2 places to TTG Zenit as well, as we're on board here with AMS Marzan, just following that car around. There's the wonderful Audi of TTG Zenit, very striking livery on that machine, but there's still nose to tail all the way through the order here, Tom.
Yeah, coming down into towards this chicane then into turns 14 and 15. This is turn 14, then you flick it right for turn 15, then turn 16 completes the lap here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, going through the right hand, and now look at FT Ant then all over the back of Originals 14, trying to find his way through. He ducks down to the slipstream, but he has to come back into it then as they come down this start-finish straight. Turismo Defsun, meanwhile, has got a bit of an advantage at the end of lap 1, just under a second or so separating himself and the BMW there in the background. Speaking of in the background, Gumball CTG was trying to find his way through on TTG Zenit down in towards that first corner. Wasn't quite able to find his way through, but you can see he's really, really close through turns 2, and then he's got the right-hand line for turn 3. He's going to be in the dirty air though here, and he's going to be understeering like a cross-channel ferry trying to get through that corner. He's not able to find a way past there, but he's got good pace here in these opening stages. Here comes TTG Thunder though, down the inside of AMS Marzan. He's not able to find his way past here at the moment. He has to duck back out of it. He had a sneaky look there up the inside into turn 4, but again, another driver really, really strong in terms of his pace in these opening couple of laps.
Yeah, there's a big slide there by AMS Marzan. He's trying to defend this, and it's not going to be going his way if he keeps that up. Originals 14, another driver that's on the defensive here, but there's these little battles just developing between pairs of drivers as well. There's too many TTGs and CGTs in the middle to shake a stick at. TTG Zenit and Gumball CGT. Turismo Windfire's in there with them as well in the Hyundai, but this battle for second place is very interesting because the longer it goes on, the more Turismo Defsun can run away. Originals 14 deep on the brakes there, Tom.
Yeah, runs wide, allows FT Ant a prime position to get overtaking, and he does take that position into P2 then. AMS Marzan still with TTG Thunder all over his gearbox as they try and find their way through and thread the eye of a needle in this final sector. Here is Gumball CTG, who we were mentioning at the start of that last lap. He is all over the back of TTG Zenit now, coming through into this final sector. Will he be able to do anything? Will the power of that Aston Martin prove to be a beneficial thing for him, as he's got the advantage of the slipstream, just running a little bit wide there in the front of his shot was the Alfa Romeo, I should say, of Carl Lam, and a penalty being given there to him as well for exceeding track limits. So disappointment there for Carl Lam, otherwise known of course as Danny Solis, who was at the World Tour event last time out in New York, qualified for the final as well. Sadly, things there not going his way, and things not going his way here today in the Manufacturer Series race for the top 16 superstars either. Here we are then on board with Originals 14, who's trying to fight his way back through after that mistake at turn 10 last time around. Down in towards the right-hander we go. Defensive line there from FT, and he tries to close that door, hold him off on the apex, and get a better exit out of the corner to not allow Originals to pull alongside in the BMW, and he just holds off the charge for another couple of corners or so. But now Originals is getting his act together here. So this is going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out. Yeah,
it's really, really interesting to see how the tables have turned when there's one car following another. You just get that bit of confidence to just sort of mimic what they do. Make sure that you identify your opportunities of when you can be quicker than them, when you can try and get a cutback, for example. It really puts you on the offensive there. But it looks like FT's got a good bit of pace here, actually, Tom, and he's running away from it, trying to catch up to Turismo Defsun. Not sure whether he can, turn down that deficit. He misses the apex by a bit there, and that's all it can take is one corner being wrong.
Yeah, margin for error here at this circuit is very small indeed. There is Carl Lam with TTG Zenit all over the back of him as well. He's trying to find his way through up the inside. Looks like Carl Lam is struggling with a bit of understeer in these opening stages. Missed that apex there at the right-hander by quite a significant margin, and TTG Zenit arguably a lot more comfortable behind the wheel of that Audi R8 as things stand. Coming through this final sector we go. We're on lap 3. I don't know if anybody's going to dive into the pit lane. At the end of lap 4 is when we should be expecting the first round of pit stops, and indeed everybody continues on, aside from TRC Stagger and also Turismo Leicester, the Ford and the Porsche drivers coming to the box early on, so they're going to try and get themselves a bit of clear air and try and get the undercut on the drivers in front of them.
Yeah, it's interesting they've gone that early, actually. We've not really seen that from many other regions, to be fair. A lot of people have either really gone about between sort of 4 and 6, but some guys even go into like lap 7, as I mentioned at the top of the broadcast. So, yeah, really interesting decision. See whether their tyres will last until the very end. It's a bit strange, to be honest, that they think that might be the best option, but maybe it's just the attraction of the clear air, maybe not being in so many battles.
Yeah, certainly seems to be the case there. FTN just putting a bit of a gap over Originals 14 in the BMW there. Meanwhile, Gumball's TTG, who was attacking TTG Zenit last time around, doesn't seem to have an answer. Meanwhile, Turismo Windfire just saw directly behind these two that are duelling at the moment, has got a half-second penalty, presumably for exceeding track limits. So that is disappointment there for him, and he will serve that penalty after turn 9. They're just coming up the hill through turn 7, through turn 8. Then they'll flick it right for turn 9 and come down that straight. And that is where that penalty will be served for the Canadian driver, just coming through that right-hander now. And there you'll see his car ghost as he comes over the penalty line.
There he goes.
And there we go. And he doesn't drop back too much. He drops back a little bit in terms of the gap, but not enough to allow the likes of GTP Pelican and also NZ in the Ford and Nissan, I should say, rather, to find their way through.
Now just looking here at Carl Lam chasing down TTG Thunder. Carl Lam's made his way up for a couple of positions at the moment, so he's doing okay, really closing onto the back of the Chevrolet there. Into the last chicane, though, it's so tough to try and line it up out of here, though, because people are going through the cutback so often. As the race leader, Turismo Defsun, comes in, so does Originals 14. They're all jumping in here, except for Carl Lam in the Alpha, who's kept out.
Yeah, he's tried to stay out and stretch those tyres out, so maybe he is feeling a bit more confident with those tyres in the mid-stages. Maybe he feels confident about the tyre life that he can achieve there as well. TRC Stagger and Turismo Leicester also looking like they're going to try and benefit here, but of course everybody else coming out of the pit lane there now as well. They come back onto the racing line as you were in terms of the top 3 positions. Of course, they're a little bit further down the order than they were before this one.
But just Carl Lam, isn't it, really? That's it's up to him now. He's really got the weight on his shoulders now.
But TTG's in it there with a half-second penalty for exceeding track limits as well, by the looks of things. And Turismo Leicester on his inside as Gumball CTG directly in front. Look at the Ford there as well of TRC Stagger. Here comes TTG Zenit trying to send it down the inside of both of them into turn 4. There's a little bit of contact between them, a bit of door handle bashing as they go bumper to bumper. TRC Stagger on the outside here, but he'll have the inside line for the switch back into the next corner. TTG Zenit up the inside, and also keep an eye out as well for Turismo Leicester, who fancies joining the party. Through the left-hander they go. This is absolutely frantic racing out here on track at the moment. Up the hill in towards turn 7 and 8 we go. TTG Zenit is going to drop back, of course, because of that half-second penalty that he will serve out of turn 9. So that'll take him out of this battle for a few moments' time. However, this is very exciting stuff, as Gumball CTG is the man who's profited most, and he's into 7th place as TTG Zenit now does serve that half-second penalty.
Wow, that was a really, really strong battle between those guys. So nose to tail, and they still are, even despite that penalty for TTG Zenit. Bit of a silly move down the inside, if I'm honest with you, on the 3 wide scenario. I don't think he needed to do that. He could have probably waited for the guys in front to battle, then try and take advantage of it afterwards. But TRC stagger there in the Ford, and the wonderful Red Bull liveried Ford, going into the last sector here. These guys, of course, all pitted as well, so as you said before, Tom, it's as they were before the pit stops. It's just Carl Lamb at the moment that hasn't pitted out the whole field, so it's going to be interesting to see how he survives. But if you look at this now, Turismo Defsun is right behind him again, so it's going to be a case of when, not if, I think, for Carl Lamb to relinquish this position. The little Alfa Romeo 4C, the squirty little thing that it is, against the very, very big Lexus, the GT3 machinery. Really, really big package of aero on these cars, and he's giving him the indicator as he goes around the right-hander. I think he's saying just go for it down the inside. He doesn't want to fight him too much. He's just trying to make the most of this strategy and stay a bit further up the field, I think.
Yeah, Carl Lamb there on the outside, Turismo Defsun on the inside on the fresher tyres, finds his way through into the race lead in the Lexus. Nicely done there. Does Carl Lamb fight back? That'll be a day late and $1 short to do it down in towards turn number 5. And indeed, he doesn't put up too much of a fight there. So FT Ant, now what can he do? He's got to dispose quite quickly of Carl Lamb here to ensure that Turismo Defsun isn't able to pull out too much of a gap.
I think it's more down to the reason that Carl Lamb let him pass so smoothly like that is if they start battling each other too much and ruin their momentum, then, you know, it helps everybody else a massive amount. If Carl Lamb can just let these guys get past him, because he knows they're going to be quicker than him, if he can let them get past him in a way that doesn't really spoil his pace that much, then, you know, he could be in a better position come the end of the race. There's only a couple of laps to go, so he might not lose too much ground. He'll probably be aiming for a top 5 at this point, because he's got FT Ant, Originals 14 and AMS Marzan behind him. And I reckon he could probably pull that off, Tom. What do you reckon, staying in the top 5?
I think it's possible, but he needs to have a little bit of luck on his side and hope that he can use, for example, the slipstream of FT Ant once Ant is able to get himself past, because you can see that's probably going to be a matter of time, given how much more grip that he has got over him.
See
at
whether
the
he
moment.
indicates.
Yeah, let's see.
He has got an indicator.
Yeah, he has indicated there, and he has said, well, yep, you just go past then, FT Ant. He's using the slipstream to his maximum advantage down the start-finish straight. We are heading down towards the first corner. FT Ant's going to have the inside line, and surely he'll be able to brake significantly later than the Alfa Romeo. Hard on the race we go as the fronts pitch down in towards turn 1. FT Ant now into second place ahead of Carl Lamb, and now, of course, Ant's next target is going to be the man who's directly in front of him, Turismo Defsun, by a second. Will he be able to reel in that gap over the next 2 laps or so?
Well, we'll have to see. There's only one way to find out, and it's whether that big yellow Mercedes can close up onto the even bigger black and red Lexus. But really nice use of the indicators there by Carl Lamb, actually. It's quite nice to see that sort of communication in the sim itself. As it down the inside there, Turismo Leicester on TRC stagger the Porsche against the Mustang. Side by side around the long right-hander. They've got to be careful, though, that they don't hold each other too much, because of the guys behind them here. Onto the brakes he goes, and wow, brilliant stuff by Leicester. Great commitment around the outside, but TTG Zenit's going to want to take the advantage of this as well, and so is Turismo Windfire as well in the Hyundai.
Oh, listen to that. Bouncing off the limiter there. TTG Zenit, I think he made a bit of a Horlicks of his gear changes there. That's really compromised his drive out of turn 7 and up the hill into turn 9.
That was, it was all over the place, wasn't it then? He was on the limiter, probably out in a different gear than he wanted to be. The car was squirrely as he came onto the throttle, so that's not really helped him, but that was lovely by Turismo Leicester though. Nice commitment around the outside, very shiny livery on that car as well, looks fantastic. Yeah,
very distinctive, isn't it, there for Turismo Leicester. Keep an eye out as well for this battle going on as Carl Lamb gets it all out of shape. Originals 14, down the inside at turn 12, into turn 13 and 14 we go, excuse me, as Originals 14, it caught me so much by surprise, I ended up coughing my guts up, but he's through into 3rd position there for the BMW driver.
And it looks like that Alfa's really struggling around that final corner. There's one more lap to go after this one then, so he's got to do still 2 laps of this circuit. I think he may hold on to 5th, you know, once he gets it, because he's got 2 seconds to TTG Thunder behind them, but you never know. It's just the tyres are going to get worse and worse for him, and it's through the quick corners that he's really going to feel that. So he goes around turn 1, through the left-hander at turn 2. AMS Marzan, though, not making visual inroads to him yet, but this is where the pain comes. Look at this around here, turn 3. He's turning as hard as he can, and he's putting so much lock on, and the tyres are just squealing blue murder. You really want mercy from him, but he's not going to get it. Into turn 4, and I'm pretty sure here, Tom, that it won't be long until he's got that indicator back on, and AMS Marzan, in that wonderfully liveried Mazda, will make his move. Let's see if the indicator comes on. It looks like that Alfa Romeo looks so small from up here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like he's peering down on it, doesn't it, for AMS Marzan at the moment. Bit of a sitting duck is Carlam here, the only driver out of everybody in the field. The other 15 have all pitted and put fresh boots on. Carlam decided to go bold, and it's not a strategy that seems to be paying off for him. If other drivers around him had done a similar strategy, it might have been a bit more beneficial, but at the moment he's a bit of a sitting duck as it stands at this phase in the race. Now, what about the gap between Turismo, Defsun and FTN? That's sitting at 1.5 seconds, so no gap changing there, no positions changing, no moves being made on the penultimate lap here. And now AMS Marzan, who gets a big dap of opposite lock out of the turn 10 hairpin, is closing up onto the back of Carlam here, and surely is going to try and launch something out of the final corner of turn 16 and think about it down that start-finish straight here. Yeah, definitely. He needs to get a good exit out of the final corner. I'm pretty sure he will get that. He's just got to line it up properly, make sure that he doesn't get held up too much by the little Alpha here. And I'm pretty sure that we will see the indicator come on in just a moment from Carlam. Let's have a look, keep our eye on it, round the last corner. No, not seen it yet. He knows he's going to get the slipstream though, so he'll probably see it coming any second. He seems pretty keen to use these indicators, so I'm hoping I'm not wrong really. And it seems in this case I am. He's just going to go straight past him anyway. He knows the score, he doesn't need someone else to tell him where to go. He's going to brake a bit early, let the Mazda through, and 5th place there for Carlam. But of course, AMS Marzan now up to 4th. He'll be happy with that. And now it's just a case where the TTG Thunder can make that gap disappear in one lap here, Tom. Well, absolutely. I tell you what, it must be so demoralising watching cars like that flying past you and knowing there's nothing you can do. No, definitely not. It's a real shame, but at the end of the day, it's one of those situations where Carlam's made his bed, he's got a lie in it, I suppose. He's stayed out on those tyres, and he's the only driver to do so. He may have gained places compared to where he would have been if he would have pitted, though, so, he's got to think about that as well. But that Mazda doing a fine job at the moment of AMS Marzan. He's getting a nice bit of oversteer on the exit of each corner as well. It's a bit of a slippery machine by the look of it. But Carlam is really falling into the clutches of TTG Thunder here. 0.8 of a second. Oh, Marzan, bit of a moment there. Well, towards turn 9 and down towards turn 10 comes our race leader, with FTN only 1.2 seconds behind. Yeah, FTN really did try and bridge that gap down, but he just didn't have the pace of Turismo Defsun. He spent a lot of time getting past Carlam as well, didn't he? And that really has hindered his progress. But either way, it's going to be a very well-deserved second position finish here for FTN. But what an absolutely superlative drive from Turismo Defsun. Just a few more corners from home now here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. All he's got to do is keep it on the straight and narrow through these final couple of corners, and he will round the final corner to take a very well-deserved win. Here is Originals 14, but Turismo Defsun out of the final turn and over the timing line to take victory in the Manufacturers Series. Top 16 Superstars race for North America. FT Ant comes down in second position. Originals 14 in third place. AMS Marzan finishes in 14th. Carlam does hold off on that final lap by half a second to finish in 5th position. Over the line we go further down the order. TTG Zenith is given a 5-second penalty there, so his race really coming undone right at the very end of that one, and finishing down the order in 15th position at the checkered flag. So disappointment there for him, elation on the other side for Turismo Defsun. Yeah, what a great race that was. Plenty of battles going on. Nice to see Carlam hold on to the top 5 though. Really good to see. The strategy wasn't a complete race changer for him. He managed to gain a couple of places based on where he was. Fastest lap, of course, by Originals 14, a 1 minute 44.416 there. 144.9 as well by Road Beef in the Porsche. Didn't really see much from him in that one, to be honest with you. No, we really didn't, actually. You're right there. Down in 12th position for Road Beef. So difficult day at the office there for him. Likewise, Outlaw Quadrant, that Peugeot Vision Gran Turismo Group 3 machine, clearly not the car to be in at all. No. Down there in the lower echelons of the positions. You can see there, Originals 14, the fastest man on track over the course of that race in terms of the lap time, 144.416 there for him. How does this affect the regional standings then, I hear you ask? Well, we've got the great answer for you, because we'll bring it up for you right now in the North America's region of the Manufacturers Series. So, it's still Turismo Defsun that leads the way, but FT Ant does manage to mug Carlam for second position. Carlam finishing inside the top 5 wasn't quite enough to hold off FT Ant's Mercedes-Benz there in second. Yeah, and Originals 14, of course, that podium for the BMW, very important there, landing himself ahead of TRC Stagger. And of course, Road Beef, who we just mentioned there, not quite getting the result he wanted. TTG Thunder, 12th place. He's jumped up quite a couple of positions over Turismo Cooper, Wardes, TTG Zenit, and GT Pelican as well. Of course, TTG Zenit, we saw having that penalty at the end. That could have been
the difference between those couple of positions. You never know.
Yeah, really, really could have been. You're absolutely right there, Chaz. So in terms of the global rankings then for all of the 12 manufacturers, we've got Lexus still lead the way ahead of Mercedes-Benz, but BMW get ahead of Toyota for third position. Jaguar now ahead of Porsche inside the top 5. Ford moving down the order there in 8th place, and Hyundai inheriting 9th position at the expense of Aston Martin. So that top 5 finish there, despite the driver, of course, of Car Lamb being at the top of the pile, not enough to halt the charge of Hyundai, who had a really, really good run, actually, in other regions.
Yeah, it just shows how easily it can shift around dependent on what the other regions do as well. You know, that's what I was saying at the top of the broadcast. You've got to really go for it in every single one of these races. You can't sort of let off and think about just your own individual championship. You've got to think about the bigger picture as well, including the entire manufacturer. So it's really, really interesting to see how this all works out, actually, isn't it?
It really is, yeah, absolutely right. So let's take a look, shall we? And remind you, of course, of the next event that we've got taking place for World Tour 4 for the FIA Certified Gran Turismo Championships in 2019. That's taking place on the 13th and 14th, Friday and Saturday of September at the Red Bull Hangar 7 in Salzburg, Austria. We really do hope you can join us for Manufacturer Series and Nations Cup action. From Chaz Draycott and from myself, Tom Brooks, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you in Salzburg.